Hi there. So what I want to touch on now is to look at the issue in relation to public sector accounting and finance. Someone asked me the question, how do I pass public sector accounting and finance? The person mentioned that she has written the paper for 5 times, public sector accounting and finance. So I want to just touch briefly on what I think are the most important things you need to do and the way you have to structure yourself to increase your chances of passing the exam. Now, when it comes to public sector accounting and finance, usually it is going to be somewhere around 75-25 theory and calculation, with the theory being high and the calculation low, or sometimes it's going to be 65-35 depending on the objective of the examiner. Sometimes it can be 80% theories and 20% calculation. Now, so I want to touch first on the calculation aspect of the syllabus. Now, when it comes to the calculation aspect, this is where we talk about issues such as preparation of financial statements or final accounts of ministries, departments, and agencies, or the metropolitan municipal district assemblies. Now, when it comes to the preparation of the final accounts on the consolidated fund, the fundamental principles are going to be slightly different from preparing of the final accounts of local government, an assembly, a district, or a department. Because when you are dealing with a consolidated fund, it's quite different. Even though the concepts are the same, the revenue recognizable, the expenditure recognizable, and the treatment of one or two things are going to be a bit different. But what you need to understand is to find out what are the underlying principles, what are the pro forma for the preparation of financial statements for the local governments, for districts, or for ministries, departments, and agencies. Because certainly there is going to be a 20-mark question on final accounts where you are preparing the statement of the income statement for a given year, or maybe the revenue and expenditure accounts, and then the statement of financial position for a central government or for a local government. So you have to make sure that you understand how these things go over. Now, the way to do that is to make sure that you know all the workings that has to be done in the subject. When you know how all the workings has to be done, workings about personal emolument, working about goods and services, workings on determination of public debt, working on determination of capital expenditure, and other various workings that has to be done when we are preparing the financial statements, then you will be able to prepare the financial statement comfortably. Now, one of the things also that will be advantageous is that the public sector accounting and finance, the standards in the IPSAS, even though it's not really exhaustible currently, unlike how it will be in the new syllabus yet to be implemented or yet to begin, it has some relationship with IASs or IFRSs. So it's just a movement. So whatever you know in financial accounting, almost all of them, when you shift it to IPSAS, it's going to be the same with the exception of some minor ideas. So what you have to do is that if you are doing financial reporting and public sector accounting, then that is going to be good for you, because if the examiner raises something on IPSAS 17, that is property, plant, and equipment, the treatment there is just almost the same as IAS 16 in the private sector. So you should know how to do various treatment of various items, how to determine revenue and expenditure of various items in the public sector. So that is an area that you have to focus on. That is going to be a done deal 20-mark area. Then another calculation session that the examiner can set question on is calculation on transfer from the transfer to the district assembly common fund. So maybe the examiner can say that there are whatever districts, the number of districts, because of the new district that are being established, maybe there are 275 districts, or how much district that there are, 154 districts that they are. When we know the number of districts, then we determine how much money that will be transferred into the the district assembly common fund. Once you know how much will be transferred to the district assembly common fund, you divide that by the number of districts, then you get each allocation for each district. That is an area of calculation that the examiner can also set question on. Then another area, it's also about performance measurement. This is where the examiner brings question on budgeted data, then it gives you actual information. Then you now find what the variances and interpret the variance. So for instance, if for the consolidated fund we have the budget, so we have the estimated revenue, tax revenue, non-tax revenues, we have the estimated expenditure, then we are giving the actual expenditure. Now you will use the actual expenditure in the preparation of your financial statement, the income statement, and then also the statement of financial position. Then after that, you're going to use that data as well to do an analysis to compare the budgeted results against the actual results and get the variance, and then interpret what that means to the country or means to the government, or what the government can make out of it. So that is a calculation area that the examiner can set questions on in relation to that. So that's 20 marks or 35 marks depending on the objective of the examiner. Then another key area that you need to focus on is public fund. It's a key topic that the examiner is definitely going to set question on. This is where we talk about issues about the consolidated fund, categorization of the consolidated fund, or the main segment of the consolidated fund, then the various types of fund like the sinking fund, like Ghana Education Trust Fund, all of these funds, contingency fund, and their purposes, the petroleum. So that will help you in that case. So that is about the another key area that you need to focus on. Then the third area that I believe you need to focus on is the sources of revenue and government expenditure. Very important. So what are the sources of revenue, and then what is the payment process? You're going to focus on issues about methods of expenditure control, the issue about warrants, okay, the various sources of revenue to the government, taxable sources, non-taxable sources. So it's a topic that you need to focus on. So the calculation aspect, public fund, then you talk about sources of government revenue and expenditure. Then another area is the legal regulatory framework. So this is where we talk about the roles, the duties, the responsibilities of Parliament, of the executive arm of government, of Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, of the Auditor General, of who else? Department heads, all right? All of these people, their roles, their responsibility, their duty. Certainly the examiner is going to set question on that area. So you want to make sure you tackle some key areas in that aspect. Then also the issue about accountability and value for money. It's a key area of the syllabus, and it's a key topic in public sector accounting and finance. So you want to make sure you focus on how various institutions ensure public accountability, and you want to also make sure the importance, or to identify the importance of value for money for the organization or for the government. So aside that, those areas, you need to look at accounting basis, accounting concepts, all those areas used in the public sector. So the cash basis, the accrual basis, modified cash basis, modified accrual basis. You want to make sure that you are familiar with those areas. Then certainly the last issue is going to be PPP, that is the public-private partnership agreement. It's a key area for public sector financing, accounting and finance. So you want to make sure you focus on these areas. So the calculation aspects are the things I mentioned: public fund, the government revenue and expenditure payments. Then you want to focus on legal regulatory framework. You want to look at the cash basis or the accounting system. Then another key area is the issue about public procurement. So this is where you looking at the process of public procurement, the methods used in public procurement, among other things. So I believe that if you structure your study, narrow down your study, and public sector is not voluminous, it's not much, it's very small, it's very small. So I trust that you'll be able to go through, tackle these key areas, then you can increase your chances of passing the examination. So comment below with questions, and I'll see you in another video on how you can pass your exams.